In this video, I want to talk about the critical link between estimating and scheduling. Estimating is working out how much things cost. Scheduling is working out how long they're going to take to be done. Now, these functions are critically linked. You can't create an estimate without having an understanding of the schedule, and you can't create a good schedule without having an understanding of the estimate. I'm going to go through the key ways these two functions are linked. Now, in the industry, we refer to project controls as the broader set of processes, tools, and methodologies used to manage and monitor a project scope, cost, schedule, and quality. So project controls is the broader function group or broader set of processes under which both scheduling and estimating are brought together. Now, there's definitely two sides to project management. There's an art side and a science side. The art side, dealing with people, communication, making strategic decisions, understanding the context of the project in terms of the business objective. There's an art element to this, and then there's a science element. The science element I would refer to as what project controls covers. It's where you're understanding schedules, what the critical path is, measuring flow, creating estimates, understanding different production rates, understanding how production rates impact the project schedule. Now, that I refer to as project controls, which is, another way of thinking it is more of the science of project management. To help illustrate this point, I want to give you some examples of the types of questions that project controls function of a project can answer. Should we accelerate the civil works? How much is a delay going to cost us? What is the impact of key materials being delayed by a number of months? And what's the best way to deal with this setback? Now, these are the types of questions that a project controllers team might have to answer. Now, looking at these questions through the lens of project controls or the science of project management, these questions all have an objective answer. If the key materials are delayed by a number of months, there is a corresponding impact to the project schedule. That impact to the project schedule, we can then calculate an impact to our cost. We might have to pay additional staff salaries, we might have to hire our site facilities for longer. In the world of project controls, these questions all have objective answers can be calculated. That's why I like to think of it as the science of project management. Under this broader concept of project controls, we integrate estimating and scheduling. So now I'm going to talk through some specific examples and some specific cases of how we use the same information or estimating and scheduling and directly integrated and to hopefully illustrate and help you understand how to create an estimate, we need a schedule, and to create a schedule, we need an estimate, and how interrelated these two functions are. The first way these two activities are linked is through productivity and production rates. So for example, if you have an activity where we have a certain productivity or production rate, for example, if we're putting up formwork for an in-situ concrete wall and we have a production rate of 2 man-hours per meter squared, this is going to translate cost in our estimate. We'll have an hourly rate for labor that will translate, depending on the number of meters squared of the wall, that'll translate into a cost. But then this same production rate is going to translate into a duration in our schedule. So it's going to depend on the number of resources we have allocated to the task. So our productivity rate is going to directly link to our estimate and our schedule. The next way is the nature of the specific task or activity is going to impact both the cost and the duration. So the staging and the scheduling of the works is going to impact the cost, and it's going to depend on whether you can, for example, when calculating the cost of activity, you're going to get productivity-driven estimate or a production-driven. So a productivity-driven task is where you have a sufficient quantity of work where the setup and mobilization costs are insignificant. For example, if we're doing a 5-kilometer trench and it's going to take us 2 or 3 weeks, then the couple of hours it takes to set up is going to be insignificant compared to the cost of the activity. However, if that same 5-kilometer trench, because of our project schedule, needs to be broken into 30 separate chunks that we do as individual activities we need to start and stop, then it's going to be a production-driven task. So we've got small quantities of inconsistent work. Can't apply this same base productivity rate to it. So what the key point I'm trying to make is the staging or the scheduling of the work is going to directly impact the Can't use the same productivity or production rates if we're breaking up and staging the work differently. So we need to understand how the work is staged and planned to be delivered before we can create our estimate. The next way that the estimate and schedule are linked is through procurement. So procurement is choosing subcontractors or vendors to complete packages of work for us. Now, in terms of the estimate, we want to be choosing subcontractors and vendors that offer the total lowest cost project. In terms of the schedule, we want to be finding vendors and suppliers that offer the shortest lead times, the shortest durations to complete their work. You can see that if we're choosing a vendor based on cost but has a long lead time, there's going to be a corresponding impact to the schedule. It might actually be more cost effective for the total project to shorten the duration if it's a key bit of equipment that impacts the critical part. On the other hand, if we're choosing a vendor that has the shortest lead time, it might have a corresponding significant cost increase. There's other ways that these two functions can be impacted. For example, if we need to procure parts that have a very long lead time, we might want to choose additional spare parts. So if a part breaks or we have a defective part, then we don't have to deal with the headache during project delivery of reordering the spare parts. Therefore, in our estimate, we need to include additional wastage, additional spare parts. So you can see, again, these two functions are linked through procurement. Then we've also got our overhead costs. So our overhead costs are the recurring overhead costs to manage the project. For example, the salary of a project manager or project engineers. Maybe have to hire temporary site facilities. Maybe we're paying for electricity monthly. All these ongoing recurring costs that form part of our estimate are driven by the project schedule. The longer the project goes, the more recurring indirect costs we're going to accrue. So we need to balance between maybe spending additional money to deliver the project faster, as opposed to extending the duration of the schedule. So there's another balancing act between estimating and scheduling. Now, I've highlighted some of the key ways that estimating and scheduling link. Key point I want you to take away is time is money. They're interrelated concepts. You can't create a schedule without an understanding of the estimate, the key drivers of cost, and making informed decisions around different methodology costs. But you also can't create an estimate without a schedule. So the two functions work together hand in hand. You need to have a strong understanding of one to do the other properly.